right now, as you listen to this, you are entirely blind to about 97% of the physical universe.
Which is a terrifying thought, honestly.
Right, and you're also functionally deaf to millions of audio frequencies that are passing right through your body at this very second.
Just completely missing them.
Yeah. So if your brain is actively filtering out almost all of reality, uh, how can you trust anything you think is actually important?
It's a really disorienting place to start,
Yeah.
but it is kind of the necessary foundation for the text we're looking at today.
Absolutely.
Because once you accept that you're operating with, less than 3% of the available data, your entire definition of progress, success, and even reality, it just has to be thrown out the window.
Which brings us to the source you brought in for today's deep dive. It's an essay from April 2006.
Yeah, titled The Ultimate Goal of Life.
Right. Written by Feng and edited by Kinyu. And it takes that feeling of deep, bone-level modern exhaustion.
That burnout we all feel.
Exactly, that burnout. And it diagnoses it not as like a failure of your schedule or your diet, but as a colossal structural failure of how humanity perceives existence.
Yeah, the author claims our whole obsession with material reality is just fundamentally flawed. And he maps out this cosmic shift toward a non-material, multidimensional existence.
So what's the core of his argument here? Because it's a massive claim.
I mean, he basically argues that we have gone horribly astray. Like, for thousands of years, humanity has experienced profound mental and physical fatigue because we're walking in the wrong direction.
We're chasing the wrong thing.
Exactly, Chase. Money, status, sensory stimulation, or, even legacy. But Feng points out this really tragic reality about this material focus.
What's next problem?
Right. When you trace any of these pursuits to their logical conclusion and you just keep asking what's next, the ultimate answer usually boils down to a very bleak realization.
Which is, it doesn't matter after I die.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Which is incredibly grim, but also, hard to argue with. We build these massive, complex lives, but the foundation is essentially a dead end.
And Feng argues that if you only pursue material goals, it inevitably leads to disaster. He lists things like deception, theft, massacre, corruption, and the destruction of nature.
Because without a higher spiritual goal, concepts like conscience, truth, and goodness, they lose their intrinsic value.
Right. Exactly. People end up only behaving because they fear the law, not because of some internal moral compass.
And he even extends this critique to our attempts at fixing society through purely material or systemic means.
Yeah, he argues that concepts like constitutionalism and democracy, if they aren't anchored to a higher spiritual goal, are essentially just rearranging the tables, chairs, and benches in a house.
Or, as he puts it, putting old wine into new bottles.
Right.
It makes me think of our material pursuits like endlessly redecorating a sinking ship. I mean, you might get much nicer furniture, you might negotiate a better cabin for yourself.
But you're still going down.
You're still going down. But I have to push back on the author's categorization here for a second.
Okay, what part?
Well, he lumps things like glorifying ancestors, providing for a family, or serving your country into this same basket of material distractions.
He does.
Providing for a family is universally seen as noble. Why group that in the exact same basket as greed or corruption?
It comes down to the underlying mechanism of ego. The author isn't saying that, feeding your children is an evil act.
Okay, good.
But he's arguing that when humanity deviates from the ultimate goal of life, which he defines as spiritual elevation, even noble-sounding causes are co-opted by survival instincts and selfishness.
Oh, I see. So without that ultimate non-material goal, providing for a family just morphs into hoarding resources for your bloodline at the expense of others.
Precisely. And serving a country devolves into nationalism that justifies harming a neighboring country. The ego basically hijacks the noble act.
Wow. Okay.
The text actually uses this quote, "Boundless is the sea of bitterness. Repent and you will see the shore."
And the shore isn't just a slightly fairer political system.
No, not at all. The shore is stepping out of the material illusion altogether.
So if the material world is this endless sea of bitterness, and everything we do materially just traps us further, why are we all so easily fooled?
That's the million-dollar question.
I mean, if the material world is so empty, why are we biologically wired to care so much about it?
Because our biological hardware is explicitly designed to lock us into this specific plane of existence.
Humans pride themselves on being so practical. We demand to see it,
Yeah.
to believe it, you know?
Yeah, but Shifeng asks us to really examine the reliability of the tools we use to perceive reality.
Right, going back to the math from the beginning of the deep dive. We only see 3% of the universe.
Which is nothing.
The other 97% dark matter, dark energy, whatever you want to call it, is completely invisible to us. And our hearing is strictly bounded between 20 and 20,000 hertz. But wait, isn't that filtering a biological necessity? Like if our brains processed 100% of the universe's radiation and frequencies, we would literally short circuit.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's a survival feature, not a trap, right? Evolution gave us the 3% we need to not get eaten by a tiger.
It is absolutely a survival feature for a biological organism on planet Earth. But that is exactly Shifeng's point.
How so?
Well, it's a tool for surviving the material plane, but it's a disastrously inadequate tool for understanding the entirety of existence.
I get it. Our biological limits keep us alive, but they also sort of imprison our understanding.
Right. We mistake the tiny fraction of reality we need for survival as the entirety of absolute truth.
And he points out that our intellectual tools are just as compromised as our physical senses, don't they?
Yes, he brings up topology, which is a branch of mathematics dealing with spatial properties.
Okay, bear with me on the math here.
I will. To explain how this proves his point, topology studies properties that are preserved through deformation. So, to a topologist, a coffee mug and a donut are the exact same shape.
Because they each have one hole.
Exactly. You can stretch and mold a donut into a coffee mug without tearing the material.
Right.
Now, our eyes tell us a mug and a donut are completely different objects with different purposes.
Obviously. One holds coffee, one is a snack.
Right. But the underlying mathematics prove they are structurally identical. Shufeng uses this to show that our immediate perception, that 3% we rely on, constantly betrays the deeper, hidden structure of reality.
So measuring the non-material world using material laws is inherently absurd.
Completely.
The author actually has a really funny line about this. He says, judging the non-material world by our physical standards leads to the ridiculous conclusion that someone lacks profound wisdom just because they cannot operate a computer, fly a plane, or tell fortunes.
Which is just a great way to put it.
We're basically judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree.
It forces a complete inversion of how we define reality. Zafeng urges us to realize that what we call reality, this highly filtered 3%, is actually a fantastic transformation.
A superficial manifestation.
Right. The things we quickly dismiss as illusory or unreal are the actual enduring essence hiding behind the physical curtain.
Okay, so if the 3% is just a curtain, what is behind it? I mean, once you realize your senses are keeping you in the dark, the obvious next step is to figure out what exists in that unseen 97%.
And the author doesn't just say, oh, it's a mystery. He actually maps it out.
He does. According to the text, the ultimate goal of life is to evolve our non-material structure of life to achieve the quality of a celestial being.
Yes. In this framework, death is not a dead end. It is merely the shedding of that 3% physical manifestation.
And he gets incredibly specific about the destinations. He talks about moving toward the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium worlds.
The scope of it is just massive.
He describes a space that doesn't just consist of the human world, but encompasses more than 30 other dimensions.
Right.
He also mentions that time has both vertical and horizontal dimensions. What does vertical time even mean?
So think of our standard human experience of time as horizontal. It is chronological. You move from the past to the present to the future along a flat line.
Like a timeline on a whiteboard.
Exactly. Vertical time in theoretical and philosophical frameworks like this implies depth within a single moment.
Depth within a moment.
Yeah, instead of moving forward along a timeline, you plunge downward into the infinite layers of a single second.
Wow.
It's the ability for a non-material consciousness to experience multiple planes of existence or alternate realities simultaneously without moving forward in the traditional sense.
That actually makes the physics he describes start to make sense.
Yeah.
He says that in our material world, matter maxes out at the speed of light.
Right.
But in the non-material realm, life operates at a negative speed of the universe that is superluminal, faster than light.
Because a non-material structure has no mass. It doesn't encounter the friction or the relativistic limitations of the physical universe.
So it can just bypass all the rules.
Yes, the superluminal state allows the essence of life to reach locations light years away instantaneously. You aren't traveling through space in a ship. You're simply shifting your frequency to exist in a different coordinate of those 30-plus dimensions.
To help us grasp this, he introduces the concept of the Mobius strip. He says we need to use this principle to reverse our thinking.
The Mobius strip is such a perfect analogy here.
For those trying to picture it, a Mobius strip is a loop of paper with a half twist, giving it only one continuous surface and one edge. If you trace a line along it, you eventually cover both sides without ever lifting your pen.
Right.
How does that explain flipping our reality, though?
Well, it perfectly illustrates the illusion of separation. Right now, humanity believes there's an inside, the solid, material world we can touch, and an outside, the spiritual or non-material realm we can't see.
We think there's a huge solid wall between them.
Exactly. But the Mobius strip shows us that the inside naturally flows into the outside. They are the exact same continuous surface.
So reversing our thinking means recognizing that you don't have to leave the physical world to find the spiritual one.
You just have to follow the curve. The material is just the visible fold of a vast, exquisite, non-material reality.
But standard human intellect is not equipped to navigate a 30-plus dimensional Mobius strip. You can't just study your way into understanding vertical time or superluminal travel.
No, you really can't.
The author draws a massive, hard line between gathering knowledge and acquiring true wisdom.
He argues that knowledge is entirely bound to the material realm. You can accumulate all the knowledge in the world, and you will still just be an absolute expert on the 3%.
It's like training an artificial intelligence exclusively on data from 1990s flip phones and then expecting it to spontaneously generate the blueprints for a quantum computer.
That's a great way to put it. The baseline data is fundamentally flawed and limited. No amount of processing power will produce a higher truth if the input is restricted to a lower dimension.
To fix that input problem, he breaks true wisdom down into 5 distinct levels. At the absolute bottom is humanize wisdom.
Which is everything we use every day. Logic, empirical science, measuring tapes. It's strictly bound to the physical.
And from there, he outlines a progression, right?
Yes. Above human eyes are diva eyes, which allow one to perceive energy and patterns beyond immediate physical proof.
Okay, stepping up a level.
Then wisdom eyes, which involve understanding the intricate karmic webs of cause and effect across lifetimes.
Wow. Okay.
Above that are dharma eyes, the ability to perceive the void and the fundamental laws governing all semi-plus dimensions.
And the final one.
Finally, at the peak is Buddha eyes wisdom. This is absolute non-dual spiritual perception, completely unclouded by ego or material limitation.
And this leads right into his biggest critique of modern society. Humanity is obsessed with humanized wisdom.
We really are.
We mapped the genome, we sent rovers to Mars, we mastered Newtonian mechanics, relativity, superstring theory, quantum mechanics, holographic universe theory.
We are incredibly profoundly good at analyzing the 3%.
Right. And that mastery birthed an unprecedented arrogance. Because we figured out the physical rules of our tiny little enclosure, we proudly proclaimed that man can conquer nature.
The text points out that in our hubris, we drove gods, Buddhas, and saints off their altars.
We assumed that because we understood the atom, we had completely outgrown the need for spiritual perception.
Which creates a really fascinating paradox.
Yeah, he writes that as we become more intelligent in this material sense, we actually become more foolish. As we get busier, we have less time for deep thought.
As we feel more self-important, the actual truth slips further away.
I love the question he asked to illustrate this. He asked, can the smartest cow in a herd lead the entire herd to a peaceful home? Have the rich and powerful elites of our world actually figured it out?
It's a brilliantly humbling image.
It really is.
Because if you think about that cow, the smartest cow in the herd might know exactly which patch of grass is the sweetest. It might know how to avoid a predator on a given afternoon.
It has mastered its 3%.
Exactly. But that cow lacks the capacity to conceptualize the farm, the farmer, the global agricultural supply chain, or the slaughterhouse.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Without relying on higher spiritual perception, human beings are exactly the same. We are just very smart cows in a very chaotic herd, dominating the pasture, but entirely blind to the multidimensional reality governing our existence.
We cannot even imagine the higher forms of wisdom let alone acquire them with our current tools.
We just don't have the hardware for it.
Okay, so if gathering more knowledge is just making us smarter cows, and following the material path of our ancestors leads to a dead end, how do we actually apply this?
The practical application.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this right now, maybe you're stuck in traffic or prepping for a meeting or just trying to get your kids to school. You are fully immersed in the material world.
Yeah.
How do you shift your trajectory?
The author offers a deeply compassionate perspective here. He reminds the reader that a human life is like a flash of lightning.
Just a blip.
Yeah, it's a fleeting moment in the span of vertical time. Because it is so temporary, there is no point in tormenting yourself over material failures.
So if you are struggling or poor or feeling that bone-deep exhaustion we talked about at the start,
The solution isn't to play the material game harder.
the way out is to fundamentally reorient your life's compass toward the ultimate goal of non-material evolution.
He provides a core methodology for this, quoting, "Great wisdom acts foolishly, and supreme wisdom is formless."
But then he gives a very specific instruction, which I found fascinating.
Oh, about visualization.
Yes. He states that our minds are one with Buddha, and that by visualization our wish will come true. And he makes sure to add a parenthetical note. Please note, it is not by thinking.
That note is crucial.
I need to stop right there. What does that actually mean on a Tuesday morning? How do you actively choose visualization over thinking?
The distinction he makes is vital. Thinking is a mechanical process. It relies entirely on human-eyes wisdom.
Okay.
When you try to think your way out of a problem, you're using logic, you're weighing material probabilities, you're relying on a 3% visibility. Thinking is the AI analyzing flip phone data.
So visualization, in Sweffing's framework, is an entirely different mechanism.
Exactly. It bypasses the tangible material world entirely.
So it's not just like imagining a sports car in your driveway and hoping the universe delivers it.
No, definitely not. It has nothing to do with visualizing material acquisitions. Visualization here acts as a bridge to spiritual perception.
How so?
It's about holding the state and the frequency of the ultimate goal, the peace, the non-attachment, the non-material essence, without trying to logically plot the steps to get there.
So if you're stuck in traffic, thinking involves doing the math on alternative routes and getting angry at the delay.
Right. Visualization involves recognizing the physical car and the road as a fleeting 3% manifestation and tuning your internal state to the 97% of expansive vertical reality.
You stop trying to solve the material puzzle with your intellect, and you start anchoring yourself to the non-material structure of life.
You essentially release your logical grip on the steering wheel. You start letting the 3% dictate your internal frequency.
Well, this has been an incredibly expansive journey.
It really has.
Thank you for exploring such a massive, paradigm-shifting text with us today. We went from diagnosing the deep exhaustion caused by our endless material trap to unpacking the biological reality that our senses filter out almost everything that exists.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We mapped out the absurdity of measuring non-material realms with topological math and physical limitations, and explored a 30-plus dimensional cosmos operating at superluminal speeds.
It's a stark reminder that accumulating knowledge is not the same as acquiring true multidimensional wisdom. It really demands a total reevaluation of what it means to be a conscious being. And as we conclude, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you navigate the rest of your highly physical day.
I love these final thoughts. What is it?
We established that our waking conscious minds are strictly bound by biological hardware to the 3% of the visible universe.
Right.
But what about when that hardware goes offline?
Oh, like when we're asleep.
Yeah. Think about your dreams, or think about those sudden, inexplicable moments of deep intuition, like a gut feeling or a flash of insight that completely defies logic.
Like when you just know something without knowing how you know it.
Exactly. What if those aren't just random neurons misfiring in a sleeping or distracted brain? What if, in those specific moments when your humanized wisdom is temporarily disabled, you are actually experiencing brief, unfiltered intersections with those 30-plus dimensions?
Wow.
What if those flashes are the superluminal, non-material reality Schwiffing describes, slipping right through the keyhole to remind you of what is waiting on the other side?
That completely reframes how I'm going to look at my own intuition from now on. The next time you feel drained by the endless demands of the material world, just remember, you do not have to keep redecorating a sinking ship.
You really don't.
You are surrounded by an ocean of unseen reality.
Yeah.
Keep visualizing, keep questioning, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.